In this video, I'm going to show you how to use chart reference lines in Data Studio. Hi, this is Ahmed from Siawak with another Data Studio tutorial, and today we're going to learn how to use chart reference lines in Google Data Studio. But first, let's take a step back and think, why is it even important? Why do we have to put a reference line on a chart? A chart shows what the numbers are, but doesn't necessarily tell us what they have to be, or what they've been expected to be, or how they perform or compare towards the benchmarks. So in short, a chart that simply shows numbers and nothing else lacks context. That's why it's a good data visualization practice to add reference lines to chart, showing targets to keep track of progress towards goals, or lower and upper boundaries for expected numbers, averages, or benchmarks. Up until now, it wasn't an easy task to do in Data Studio. We needed to fall back to little hacks and tricks by adding dummy, calculated fields or simple metrics for the sake of having just another line on the chart. And sometimes it wasn't even possible. But with the introduction of chart reference lines, it's now quick and easy to add a static or calculated reference lines to any chart, almost any chart. Let's take a look and see how it works. Okay, here we are. Let's take a look at chart reference lines in Data Studio. Here we have one. It's a bar chart showing the number of users per city, and we have a target line on it. So this is a reference line that I've added on the number 500 to show that we have a target of 500 users per city. We can customize where the line appears, its title, its color, and the type and thickness of this line. It can be solid, dotted, and dashed, and we can change the thickness too. We can add chart reference lines to time series, line and combo charts, bar charts, area charts, and scatter charts. Let's see some more examples first, and then learn how to enable and configure them for our charts. The next example would be a time series chart. Here you can see that we can have more than one reference line on a single chart. So for example, here we have daily at risk and daily target. So we are communicating to the viewer of the report that we expect the number of users per day to be somewhere between those lines, and that we are trying to hit this target. The next example is again a time series chart. But as you can see, the reference lines this time is a bit different. Can you see the difference? Okay, so the difference is this one is not based on a constant number, just like the ones before. If we go to the previous page, you can see that the daily target is set at the fixed number of 500 and at risk is set at the fixed number of 200. So we know that we don't want the user's number to go less than 200 per day. But on the next one, on this time series, is daily average. So it is not a constant number. The actual place of this reference lines is being calculated dynamically and based on the values of the daily users. So instead of just comparing the numbers against a target, we can see on which days we had a better performance than average and on which days we had a worse performance than average. Now, let's go back to edit mode and see how we can add and configure these reference lines to our charts. Let me go back to the first page and then to the edit mode. First, let's see how we can add a constant reference line. I'm going to pause and remove this line, and then we're going to add it again. That's it, it's gone. Now let's see how we can add it. First of all, we need to go to the Style tab, and then here we can see a section called Reference Lines. We can click Add, and then a constant line will be added at the number 0 at the bottom of y-axis. The first thing we can set is that either we want a constant value or a calculated value. Let's keep it on constant, and if you remember, the value was on 500. Now if I type 500, it will show the line on that value. If we scroll down just a bit, we can give it a label, which is already there from before, target, and we can decide, do we want to show label, or if we don't want to show the label. Most of the time, it's best to keep it there because we want the viewer to know what that line represents. And then here we can set the thickness and the type, for example, solid or dotted or dashed, and also the color. Let's see, there's no contrast here. This is not bad. To add another line, we just need to click on this add another reference line again and set another value, for example 100, and we call it at risk, and we make it kind of red. Now let's see how we can add a calculated reference line. It was this one, wasn't it? Let me pause and remove it again. Okay, it's gone. Just like before, we have to click on add a reference line, and this time we have to choose calculated value. First, we need to select the metric that we want to apply the calculation to, and then we have to select the type of calculation. Right now, we only have users, and that's why we cannot choose any other metric. But if you have multiple metrics applied to your charts, then you need to select based on which one do you want to perform the calculation. The available types of calculations are average, median, percentile, minimum, and maximum. Apart from that, the rest of the calculations are exactly the same. A calculated reference line shows the calculation type by default as the label, but it doesn't identify the metric that is applying to. So it is still a good practice to give it a custom label like average number of users or average daily users. If we take a look at the next example, we can see that here we have two averages. So there's a chart with users and page views, and here I have used both labels and colors to show which reference lines belongs to which time series. Let's take a look at another example of a calculated reference lines, this time on a scatter chart. This scatter chart shows the number of users and page views per session for different cities in California. And here we've added an average reference line for the number of users. And if we hover on it, we can see the actual average per city is 110.6. It's important to note that this average is dynamic. It's being calculated dynamically. So if we apply filter to this page, to this report, to this chart, that actually change the values or the actual cities that are plotted on this chart, the average will be recalculated. So right now is 110, and I have applied a metric slider to this chart. Let's see what happens if we remove all the cities with less than 100 users in this time period. I'm going to use the metric slider and say we just want the cities with more than 100 users in this time frame. And right now, those cities, those dots are removed from the scatter chart, and the average has been recalculated. Right now it's 311. Let me reset this chart, and the average will be recalculated. And as the final example, let's see how we can add two horizontal percentile calculated reference lines to this scatter chart. On the next page, I've done it already. So here we can see the cities of 19th percentile and above, and underneath everything below 10th percentile. Again, just like the average, if we change any filter on this chart, the reference lines are going to be recalculated. So as you can see, the chart reference lines are not only great for showing fixed target and benchmarks, but also they allow us to give the viewers a powerful tool to explore data and do basic analysis themselves. Now it's your time to get back to work and improve your current reports by adding a few reference lines here and there where it makes sense to make it easier for the viewers of your report to read and interpret the data on those charts. If you're new to Measure School, make sure to subscribe to get notified of the future videos that we publish. And if you have any questions, please leave a comment below. This is Ahmed. See you in the next video.